This is Scott Becker at the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. Today's discussion is 24 tips for awful golfers. Would love to hear your thoughts. Of course, this comes from me, who's an awful golfer, but I used to be horribly awful. So here's 24 quick tips. One is, if you need to gamble on the golf course, and some of these aren't jest, some of these are very real. If you need to gamble on the golf course, gamble with people that have vanity handicaps, that have lower handicaps than they should. Second, don't gamble enough to ruin your day. Don't ever borrow to gamble. Just like you shouldn't borrow to invest in stocks, don't borrow to invest in the golf course. Third, your golf swing is only getting so good, so you better focus on strategy. I want to keep on getting your golf swing better, but a huge part of the game is learning to focus on strategy. Fourth, every practice and practice shot that you take should be really focused on a target. It's no good just hitting the ball. Always aim for targets and figure out what that looks like and how you can translate that to the course. Fifth, when you get better, don't forget who your buddies are. So many guys get better, they stop calling, they never play. You know who you are. My God, you're not that good. But when you get better, remember who your close friends are. When your buddies do get better, it does lead to overinvesting and taking a ton of lessons. So every pro in the area gets rich. Sixth, every shot on the course should be to a very safe target. You always got to pick a target and aim to a very safe target. Seventh, you need to overplay to safe targets always. So you have to understand your dispersion of shots. And if your dispersion of shots includes trouble, you need to aim that much further away from trouble to make sure that you do fine even as you miss to one side or the other. There's a great saying, you're only as good as your misses. As I say to myself, aim to safe targets, you moron. Eighth, if you have a buddy that hits a huge drive but can be wild, you always want to encourage that buddy to swing as big as possible. If in a moment of sanity he takes out a 3-wood to try and avoid making big errors, you want to insult him for so long till he goes back and gets his driver and makes the mistake you expect. 9, learn to absolutely love shots with your pitching wedge, your approach wedge, anything that you can roll or keep lower versus your 56 and 60. Your 56 and 60, when it goes right, are going to look much prettier. You're going to have perfect outcomes, but your probabilities are going to be higher with shots that you could roll or keep low, like your pitching wedge, your approach wedge, your gap wedge. So that's that. 10th, putt, anything you can punt. 11th, again, a note to myself, don't flag hunt, you moron. Aim for the middle of the green and away from trouble. 12th, in every shot, understand where trouble is and aim so far away from trouble that you avoid problems. Give yourself a lot of margin. 13th, and this is more technical, constantly focus on zeroing out your club path and your club face and work very hard at staying relatively still. 14th, focus on a core swing. I went through a period of time of going back and forth from fade to draw, fade to draw. I'm not good enough to do that. Most golfers aren't good enough to do that. Focus really, learn to love one core swing. 15, if you have a close colleague that plays much better when you pick on him or tease him or pressure him, then do everything you can to give him lots of praise and be so sweet that he gets out of his competitive beast mind game. You have to learn, even if it's hard for you, to be so nice to the person so he doesn't get into good competitive mode. 16, when all else fails, buy a new club or clubs. I mean, it's always the simple answer. It's never the right answer, but it's fun and it is what it is. 17, like anything in life, don't keep switching teachers and coaches. Learn to love your coach and learn to try and comprehend what works for you out of what you're learning and try to adopt it. 18th, unless you're a moron like I am, don't check your phone every 2 minutes on the course. It's rude to others. It's not helpful to your game. Some of the dumbest players I know, like myself, constantly look at their phones. 19, practice from short to long. Your putter, your wedges, your irons, your woods, your drivers. Focus more time on the clubs you're going to use a lot. Your driver, your tee shots on the par threes, your 7-iron, your wedge, your putter. Work on those more. 20, heavily rely on clubs that you are very confident with. 21, very aggressive shots to very safe targets. Pick very safe targets. 22, if everything else fails, remember that most of us all suck at golf and don't worry about it too much. 23rd, a core goal is to avoid double bogeys. If you do that as a priority, your scores will come down and you'll find your pars and birdies. But the first goal is avoid trouble, get out of trouble easy. Don't try and double down on your mistakes. 24th, if your friends join really fancy clubs, golf clubs, and they don't invite you, they are no longer your friends. 25th, and it may be a PS on this, I'll tell an anecdote. When I was going through a difficult time in life, I'll tell my therapist, my God, I really felt bad after I golfed, and I was golfing so poorly, and I'm never a very good golfer. And the therapist gave me the best piece of advice ever. If golfing makes you feel bad, don't do it. And I thought that was brilliant therapeutic advice. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I know it's goofy. I know it's not real hardcore business and private equity, but 24 tips for awful golfers, including one tip from my therapist on don't golf if it's making you that upset. Thank you for listening.